It is better to die for an idea that will live than to live for an idea that will die. These are the words spoken by Steve Biko, a South African anti-apartheid activist who led the Black consciousness movement in the 60s and 70s. He was arrested on his way back home from Cape Town due to violating his banning order. He was sent to jail where he was neglected, tortured, interrogated, and beaten. Eventually, he was loaded naked onto a back of a truck and driven 740 miles to the hospital, where he eventually died on September 12, 1977. His death was not in vain, however, as it became worldwide news that eventually became part of the events that pressured South Africa into abolishing apartheid. But what if he was not arrested or even survived prison like Nelson Mandela? How would that have shaped South Africa? That is what we'll talk about today on Green Click. By the way, be a friend and subscribe. Click the notification button to get alerts and like the videos to help us make more videos you love about an amazing continent. Let's dive in. If Steve Biko was still alive, he would be 73 and probably be living where he was before he was taken into custody. He would have been revered as Nelson Mandela was, as he is considered a martyr in the troubled South African history. One would have to wonder if Steve Biko himself would have tried running for the presidency of South Africa. What we do know, however, is that Biko preferred socialism over communism and capitalism. He preferred the idea of equality even if being provided by the government in lands and jobs. Kwandiwe Kondlu, a professor of political economy at the University of Johannesburg, said that Biko would have made President Nelson Mandela reconsider his approach to introducing democracy to South Africa. Some people feel the compromise to end apartheid was focused on reconciliation rather than promotion of black awareness. As Nelson Mandela was fighting for equality between blacks and whites in South Africa, Steve Biko focused on improving the psychology of the black population, which eventually would create equality. So in a way, Mandela and Biko looked for the same outcome, but both had different directions to the outcome. With that being said, Biko would most likely have criticized Mandela's political actions. With Biko's views on black solidarity, he would have criticized the South Africans that were xenophobic. After apartheid, against common knowledge, black South Africans do not approve other Africans settling into their country. Most South Africans believe the foreigners are taking their jobs and benefits, while others believe foreigners are responsible for the high crime rate of the country. Foreigners continuously die for owning businesses in South Africa, even though their population has increased by almost 2 million in the past decade. Clearly, Biko would have spoken out against this by calling for unity between black people, as Biko did not see class in black people. He only saw black people. Biko hated violence and only left it as an ultimate last resort to getting anything done. This would have put him in a weird debate with South Africa's second president, Thabo Mbeki, who some thought was aiming to appease Mugabe, while Zimbabwean migrants were apparently causing housing shortages in South Africa. He most likely would have turned his back on ANC, as the ruling party of South Africa have produced its share of good and bad presidents. Ultimately, everything we have said can be speculation, as he was only 30 when he died. Who knows, he could have changed his views on black consciousness, he could have had a bad relationship with other world activists or the UN, or his message on black solidarity could have caused more misunderstanding. If you have reached this stage of the video, we would like to thank you for sharing your time with us, but comment below if you think Biko would have made a great president. We'd love to hear your side. At the time of this recording, our video on Lesotho joining South Africa is our most popular video. Therefore, it makes sense to talk about Eswatini, formerly known as Swaziland, and the other country in South Africa. The result, if this happened, however, may not go as well. Anyways, what if Eswatini became part of South Africa? This is what we'll discuss today on Green Click. By the way, be a friend and subscribe, click the notification button to get alerts, and like the video to help us make more videos you love about our amazing continent. Let's dive in. Eswatini is surrounded on the west, north, and south by South Africa, but shares a border on the northeast with Mozambique. The currency is tied to that of South Africa, but they also have a local note called the Lilangeni. It is lavish with the big five of Africa, and you can see a video about that in the top right corner. Tourism is one of its biggest ways of making money, while it has a population of over 1 million people, 1.6 to be exact. Since it gained its independence a second time in 1968 from British rule, Eswatini has been split into 4 regions, with Mbabane as the capital. Eswatini is an absolute monarchy, even though the king rules the country with his mother, making it a diarchy. There is a parliament, however, with a senate and a house of assembly voted in every 5 years. Culture-wise, Eswatini has festivals with Inkwala and the Umhlanga reed dance. The Inkwala relates more to a kingship ceremony, while the Umhlanga dance, well, Google that one yourself. One big problem though is the HIV rate in Eswatini is pretty high, hence a low life expectancy rate, especially among men. So, what would happen if Eswatini joined South Africa? South Africa would welcome 1.6 million people into its population. South Africa would also gain more but yet inexperienced soldiers, as the current Eswatini army have not fought a war outside their country. South Africa would also accept traditions and integrate the Eswatini culture into their society. However, this is where the easy assimilation ends. The problem here is the diarchy. With the last king of Swaziland suspending the constitution in 1973, Swazis only understand the rule of a king. How would this work when Eswatini joins South Africa? The king will not be a ruler anymore. Maybe he would rule the new state, but not have as much of a say in the rest of the country's affairs. Another problem for the new nation to deal with would be the HIV situation that Eswatini currently faces. There's not much more that would happen if the two countries became one, but comment below if you are from Eswatini and give your take on this if it ever happened. We would love to hear your side.
Julius Malema is a complicated individual. One minute you admire his love for Africa, and the next you are face-palming yourself because of something he said. Regardless of what you think of him, Julius Malema loves South Africa. The former ANC man has been trying to be nominated as South African president for a while now, but he has been unsuccessful in all attempts. But what if Julius Malema was able to rally voters and earn himself the ticket to be the president of South Africa? What would happen? Would this improve South Africa or scare people away from the country? That is what we'll discuss today on Africa Assemble. By the way, be a friend and subscribe, click the notification button to never miss our videos, and like our video to help us make more content you love about our amazing continent. Let's dive in. Mr. Malema was born in 1981 in Shashego and was a member of the ANC from the age of 9. He eventually became the president of the ANC Youth League in 2008 and then acquired a degree in Bachelor of Arts from UNISA in 2016. However, he was expelled from the ANC in 2012 after being found guilty for sowing division in the ANC, among other things like racial instigation and lashing out at the journalist. This would lead Malema to form his own party, the Economic Freedom Fighters, which went on to win 25 seats in the National Assembly. Mr. Malema has been part of the parliament since. During his time in the spotlight, Julius Malema has drawn criticism to himself in the way he deals with race, land reform, attitude towards other politicians, and a few allegations of corruption. So what if Julius Malema was president of South Africa? Well, this would be very interesting. First of all, there would be a great divide in the perception of his rule. White South Africans would be nervous as Julius Malema has said so many things to suggest he is racist. From his speeches and actions over the years, Julius Malema can be described as having a brash and unapologetic personality. He is not politically correct and is usually direct with his words. He may not like conflict, but he seems to appreciate conflict as part of a resolution, as he expressed when interviewed about his scuffle at the Pan-African Parliament. Though white South Africans may be worried about Julius Malema, black South Africans will also not be safe from the watchful eye of Malema, as he has criticized billionaire Patrice Motsepe and other majority black parties like the ANC. Speaking of the ANC, Malema would be locked in an internal feud with his former party, as the EFF puts a capitalist label on the ANC. The EFF is not a majority in the parliament, which would pit Julius' ideas with the other parties. This would make for great TV or embarrassment.
I withdraw because I don't want you to chase me out. I want to vote a criminal out.
Take your seat, Honorable Member.
As far as actions Malema would likely take while in office, he would aim to tackle corruption, increase the minimum wage, grant education for all, halt the tolling system, and nationalize land. Though these are mentioned, many South Africans view Malema as a student of Marxism, similar to communism. Though this looks bad, one has to understand that communism is great in theory, but poor in practice. You can look to China and Cuba to see how their attempt at true communism turned out. Communism aims to remove the sharp divide between the rich and the poor by making the working class own everything. But the problem is the government in power usually corrupts the system. When people talk about Malema advocating for expropriation of land without compensation, they forget that he mentions that there should be equal distribution afterwards. His inexperience would also be used against him. Though Mr. Malema has been around politics since the age of 9, he has not been a governor over a city or a state. Now imagine the new tasks he would have to take on as a president. His past would be brought up against him at every turn. Julius Malema has been convicted of hate speeches. He once sang a song saying "shoot the Boer," which did not go well with many South Africans. In another speech, Malema said the EFF are not calling for the slaughter of white people, at least for now. After Robert Mugabe's death, Julius Malema paid tribute by quoting the dead president, posting on Twitter, "The only white man you can trust is a dead white man." Malema was also charged for money laundering in the past. Julius Malema is a Pan-Africanist and fully supports the advancement of Africa. Hence, he would rub shoulders with African leaders and would frown at the rest of the world he believes is not for the development of Africa. Julius recently blamed France for interfering in Africa's business and even got into a war of words with former President Donald Trump, stating that there is black genocide in America when the latter mentioned that there is white genocide in South Africa. In conclusion, Julius Malema being a South African president will resemble a rule of a Pan-Africanist, also posing similarities to the Donald Trump presidency over America, like attacking journalists, instigating race separation, and verbally assaulting other politicians. But one has to wonder, is Julius Malema a racist, or is he reacting to the racial society he grew up in?
We are going to leave this house because we are not prepared to listen to this criminal, but we'll wait outside. When the criminal finishes speaking, we are coming back to continue with the business of this parliament. We are just going to the loo because we are avoiding the criminal. We'll come back when the criminal is gone.
If you have not visited Cape Town yet, what are you doing? This beautiful city at the southern tip of Africa has beaches, mountains, architecture, history, and money. It is also one of the only African cities to host the FIFA World Cup, and it has so many titles like being a global city or a world design capital. Though Cape Town has never tried to separate itself from South Africa, this is Africa Assemble, and we like to wonder and ponder. So if this gem of a global city became an independent country, leaving South Africa, how would this shape both countries? That is what we'll discuss today on Africa Assemble. By the way, be a friend and subscribe, click the notification button to never miss our videos, and like this video to help us make more content you love about our amazing continent. Let's dive in. If a state decided to leave a country, it has to be a peaceful scenario, and eventually the new state would have to be recognized by the UN and other nations. Though these are ideal steps, some countries are still not recognized by other nations, like Taiwan not being recognized by China, or Kosovo not being recognized by Russia, Argentina, Libya, and other nations. In the case of Cape Town, South Africa would first have to accept this before any further steps are taken. And based on the assets that Cape Town bring to South Africa, this would definitely be met with high resistance. The first reason is money. Cape Town is South Africa's second main economic center, with its money coming from tourism, real estate, finance, tech, and recently the space industry. All this gives Cape Town over $78 billion in GDP, and if that is taken out of South Africa's $280+ billion in GDP, imagine how much of a loss that would be for South Africa, and how that money could be spent if Cape Town kept all that money to itself. It is a very beautiful city, so a fair amount of tourism would be lost to South Africa. The second reason is the population. With over 4 million people living in Cape Town, South Africa will lose a bit of its population. According to data, Cape Town is a city with the most entrepreneurial minds in South Africa, and losing that kind of population could be detrimental to the economic growth of South Africa. 9/10 of the fish eaten in South Africa comes from Cape Town. This would be something South Africa would not want to lose. Lastly, with the personal income tax rate at 45%, South Africa would stand to lose a lot of tax money from over 4 million people in a thriving economy. Of the two countries, Cape Town would benefit greatly from separating from South Africa, if it ever happened. Would it change its name from Cape Town to Cape Country, or even just the Cape? On a successful secession from South Africa, Cape Town will initially have to forge a new government structure and laws. It would also have to create its own army, healthcare system, and create new trading partners, which the latter would not be difficult since it's a coastal city. Funny enough, it would not be the smallest country in the world, as it will rank behind the Vatican and Monaco in being small. Speaking of Monaco, Cape Town would be the Monaco of Africa, as it is a popular destination, especially after the 2010 World Cup. Cape Town would have to answer some questions though, like would they still use the rand? Would all its inhabitants choose to stay in Cape Town or migrate to South Africa? Would one need a visa to travel to South Africa and vice versa? Since most people speak Afrikaans in the city, would Afrikaans be the national language? Cape Town would be the country with the most mixed people, as over 40% of the 4 million people living in the town are of mixed race. Since Cape Town's land area is restricted, the country may have a problem with population growth in the future, which could create another water crisis. And the one real bad downside is Cape Town is currently one of the most violent cities in the world, and with it becoming a country, it could end up being the most violent country in the world. Like the country of South Africa, Cape Town would also aim to mend its society as they aim to move away from the apartheid history it endured. With all that aside, Cape Town as a country would be awesome. But it will never happen, as Cape Town needs South Africa as much as South Africa needs Cape Town. There have never been rumblings of separation, and the Western Cape would be really sad if this ever happened. Now we turn the question to you, dear watcher. If you are a South African watching this, how would you feel if Cape Town ever left South Africa? Share this with a friend and drop a comment if you disagree or would like to request a video. Till then, brothers and sisters, totsiens.